In this session, let's understand the concept of promise chaining, and we'll also see how promise chaining is better than, or overall promises are better when it comes to multiple async operations.
Hey there. If you're finding this video helpful, you'll love our full online course on JavaScript with node.js. It goes even more in depth and covers everything you need to know. Check out the link in the description to enroll and take your skills to the next level.
And what I mean to say by that is, in the previous section, we saw the concept of callbacks, where we can use a nested callback structure. If one async operation is dependent upon another, then what we do is we kind of provide the second async operation as a callback of first one. And then it creates a pyramid-like structure, a horizontal pyramid, which is also referred as pyramid of doom or callback hell. So let's try to understand this comparatively by taking one example over here. So let's say we are designing a trade settlement system where initially we get the details from customer. We have a function which takes details from customer. Then once we receive the details, then we'll process the order. Once order is processed, it will create the trade, then it will process the trade, and then it will settle the trade. So all these functions individually are async functions because they are going to take some time to execute. They might be working with some database, they might have some APIs with which they are working with third-party systems. Each of them are taking some time, like this one is going to take 3 seconds, second one take 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 5 and 3 seconds. So basically what is going to happen is JavaScript is not going to wait while these functions are getting executed. JavaScript will go ahead and execute rest of the code, but we still want to wait for executing the rest of the functions while first one is getting executing. So there is still dependency. While first one is executing, we need to wait. Once it is done, then only we will proceed to the second one. So for all such situations, one example or one way of doing this we already saw in the previous section is nested callbacks, which results into callback hell if number of such operations are huge. So we'll see how promises can help here by using the concept of promise chaining. So what we'll do is, first let's try to solve this with our knowledge of callbacks, and then we'll see how promises help this simplify. Let's quickly begin by designing this function. So first function is get order details. To simulate the async behavior, I'm going to use set timeout. So I'm simply going to say set timeout of 3 seconds. And all this is going to do is, after 3 seconds, it's going to log order details are received. Okay, also we have another function, process order, which is dependent on this. So we'll create a callback here. And once this function is executed, we'll call the callback function at the end. Okay, that's how we create callback. It will do whatever it wants to do, and at the end it will call the callback function, which will lead to the execution of the next function, right? So let's quickly design all of them. So this is first one, second one. So let me quickly add for all of these here. Okay, so I have created all the 5 functions. First, for getting the order details, it will wait for 3 seconds and it will print order details received in the console. Second is for processing the order. Again, it will wait for 3 seconds and it will print order processed in the console. Third is create trade, which takes 2 seconds. So it will wait for 2 seconds and print order trade created in the console. Similarly, for process trade, same function, it's going to take 5 seconds. It's going to say trade process, and finally is settle trade. Okay, so what we have done is we simply created 5 functions by using callback. So when we use these functions, instead of this callbacks, we are going to provide the name of the next function that we want to execute once this is done. So when we are going to call this function, we are going to provide process trade over here. So as soon as this is done, it's going to call that one. Similarly, when we are going to call this function, we'll provide the name of the next function in the argument. So once processing of the order is done, it's going to call the creating the trade. Okay, so now let's start calling these functions. This is very interesting. So let's begin with the first one. So I'm going to call this one. Now in the arguments of this function, we need to provide a callback. Which is that callback function? This one over here, process order. Now process order also has an argument which takes a callback. So when we provide the callback function, we usually provide the name of the function only. We don't provide the brackets, because if you provide the brackets, it means we want to execute the function right over there, and then it will get the result and provide that result over there, which we do not want. We want to provide the name of the function. And we cannot simply provide the name of the function here because it also has an argument that we want to pass. So to solve this issue, what we do is we'll create an arrow function here. So we'll remove this. We'll create an arrow function, and inside the arrow function, we'll provide the name of the next function that we want to execute. Okay. Now when we are executing the process order, in the arguments, we have the next function to execute, that is create trade. But again, simply create trade also has a callback, so we cannot call it directly here. So we'll use an arrow function and provide create trade here. Now when we are calling create trade, the callback that we want to use is process trade, which also has a callback. So this process is going to continue. So this one will also have an arrow function, and inside the arrow function of its argument, we have process trade. Similarly, process trade also has a callback, which is going to call settle trade. So we'll do the same process and finally call settle trade. Now settle trade, we do not need a callback for this one because we do not have anything else to execute after this. So we can remove this part and run settle trade just like this. Okay, so just with these 5 functions, we can see the structure is complex enough to confuse a new person in the team. Just assume we have 50 such operations to be done one after another, and this can easily get very complex. And this also looks like a horizontal pyramid kind of structure. That's why they call it as pyramid of doom, or also referred as callback hell. Okay, it'll run fine when we execute this program now. First, order details received, then it will wait, and then order processed. It will wait, then order created, then order processed, and finally trade is settled. So all these things are happening as per the order that we want. It is working fine. This is a correct solution, but only thing is, this is as number of async operations to be run sequentially. When the number of such operations increase, it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain and understand for new people in the team. So with promises, there is a better way of doing it, but promises are also not foolproof. There is still a better way of doing it by using async await, which we will see it in the next section. But for now, what we'll do is the same code, how to do it using promises, we'll see, and how does it simplify and avoid the issue of this callback hell is what we are going to see in the next part of this video. So let me quickly put a border over here and copy over all these functions that we created beneath the border. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to convert these functions into promises. What I mean to say by that is, now they are using callback, but instead of callback, we are going to create a promise over here and return that promise. And the way we do it is simply by saying return new promise. Over here, we know that we have promise resolve and reject. And this particular code will go inside over here. And at this point, let's resolve the promise. And we'll just say success. Okay, as simple as that. What did we do? We used return keyword, we are returning a new promise. We know there is a callback function over here that we add, which takes two arguments. One is resolve, another is reject, and set timeout is same one that we are using to simulate this async behavior. After 3 seconds, it will print order details received in the console and promise will be resolved. So I will quickly change all of these functions into promises. Okay, so we have changed all the functions into promises: get order details, process order, create trade, process trade, and settle trade. Now there is no callback anywhere we are using. We are returning the promise for all of these functions. Now let's see how promise chaining work. Before we go there, let me quickly comment this code so it doesn't interfere with our execution of promises. The first function that we want to execute here is get order details. So we'll begin with that. So we'll begin executing get order details. What it is going to do is it's going to return a promise. So we can use .then, right? We use then when the promise is resolved. So I'm going to use then over here. Now inside the then, we have what we want to do after the promise is resolved. Now what do we want to do after this promise is resolved? We want to run the next promise. So what we'll do is we'll create a callback over here and we'll run the next function, which is process order. Now instead of just running the process order, what we'll do is we'll also return it. And what happens is executing and returning the process order, what it is going to return? It's going to return another promise. So what we can do is we can simply use .then over here. So this then will work on the promise returned from the process order. As simple as that. Because we are not just running but also returning the promise from the process order, we can still use then on this one and continue to do the same process. So we'll use res. After process order is done, next thing that we want to do is creating of the trade. So this is also a promise. So we'll do return create trade. This also will return the promise. So we'll use then. Again over here, we'll have another promise to be returned, which is process trade. This also returns a promise. So after this one, we can still use then. And after the processing of the trade, we have finally settlement of the trade, which we can also return. And after the settlement is done, we can use then one more time. Console.log and whatever result we get finally. Okay, and if you want to avoid these because we are not really using this parameter, we can avoid this and also get rid of this parentheses because they are not really needed for a single parameter. Okay, as simple as that. Now this is much cleaner and much easier to understand as compared to this pyramid of doom-like structure. Both of them will work exactly similar. So if we go ahead and rerun this program, it's gonna run pretty much in the same fashion. First, order details received, order processed, trade processed, trade settled, and success, which is nothing but this one over here which we are passing. Only difference is in terms of readability of the code, the maintainability of the code, and ease of understanding of the code as compared to the concept of callback hell. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know.
Thanks for watching. If you want to dive deeper into JavaScript with node.js, don't forget to explore our complete online course. Click the link in the description to get started today. Plus, subscribing to our channel ensures you won't miss out on more valuable content in the future. See you in the class.